and he took note of how our magic worked, how our expression changed the circumstances around us very, very quickly. But because of we didn't have access to the weapons, we didn't have access to a lot of the firepower that they had, it was a little bit more difficult for us to take up arms and come against them. Let me try to bring it forward a little bit. So even though these codes were enacted, it was much more difficult to enforce them on the islands and down through South America. Much more difficult to enforce it than it was in the United States. So what they did was, and his policies actually heavily influenced Alexander Hamilton, who was the American president around that time. That's why I'm so disgusted by that play, Hamilton. I hate that shit. It's like the worst thing ever. Like, this man who hated us is now being portrayed by us, and everybody's going nuts over it, and I can't take it. But let's see. One of the other ways that they were able to control us is through separating the parents from the children. Okay? And this is why it's so dangerous even right now to send your children to the public school system, because what they're doing when they're there is they're being indoctrinated into a state of fear. Black children in these school systems are not they're not cared for. They are it's set up to keep them in to believe a certain kind of way, to respect a certain kind of way. And they're too many of these children are breaking free of that just by virtue of the time that we live in. But it's going to be more, it has to be on us as mothers, not just of our own biological children, but of all children, to do what we can to, like, pull them back out of it, because the first line of defense is to separate the mother from the child, the child from the parents, and indoctrinate them with Christianity. And I don't mean to offend anyone who's Christian here, but the way that they forced it on us was through fear, through threat of death, through threat of torture, through not just not just the threat, but the actual act of killing, torturing, and separating families, so that we would be forced to believe in a devil, that we would be forced to believe that we were meant to be subservient, that we were forced into believing that we were what we are now. Not us, because we all should know better, but the rest of our people think that we are just this. You see what I'm saying? So, okay. I'm sorry.
We do not over apologize.
Okay, so and this the Cold War is one example of that a system set up to rule against African culture. In Jamaica, the Slave Code of 1696 enforced capital punishment, meaning you would be killed if you were caught drumming, or if you were caught with herbs, or if you were caught with anything that might be misconstrued as malevolent magic against the European rule, right? Anything that challenged their rule was called the devil. Everything that challenged what they taught was of the devil. So, you know, in Virginia, poisoning was the second most frequent crime around in the 1700s that enslaved Africans were prosecuted for. And so this just paints a picture of the fact that we were not just laying down and taking it. We were actually resisting in the ways that we knew how, in the best ways that we could. People literally, like, we were really out here warrioring, like, fighting for our lives through these means. And through, like I said, through the legislation, through threat of fear and death, we stopped. We did. Mothers started to, like, yank their daughters and yank their sons up for trying to express themselves in that way. Even though they knew better, they didn't want to see their children dead.
Right.
In South Carolina, the Security Act of 1739 required all white men to carry firearms in public to protect themselves from all the different uprisings that had taken place in South Carolina. The Bristol Weekly Intelligencer, which was a publication in Europe that also circulated throughout the northern territories of America, had a recipe in it for the title of it was Antidote for Slave Medicine. So this and I'm telling y'all all of this because I want you to understand that this right here is not new. This is not something that we just came across from somebody that started teaching 5 years ago and we just hopping on the bandwagon. All of these beliefs and all of these traditions we have been carrying for a very, very long time.
But your DNA, remember? Like,
but exactly.
Things just start to come to you naturally when you start going higher, elevating yourself.
That's right. So I don't know, and that's it. And one of my elders told me that she said everybody has to pick a vehicle. You have to choose get in your vehicle and ride it until you get to your destination. And so whatever that is, like for you, it's your intuition, right? And for you, it is
my cards and bones.
Your cards and your bones, right? And for me, right now, I believe that it's my dreams, it's my meditation. Because these are all the mediums where information starts to get downloaded into your spirit, into your brain, into your mind. You have to select what it is that's going to connect you to our ancestral mothers, connect us to our source, connect us to our ancestral fathers too, because we can't do it without the masculine and feminine dichotomy. It cannot be done without the masculine and the feminine, and we house that in us, but it also exists outside of us. Let's see. Y'all know who Mackendall is? Anybody heard of Mackendall?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Mackendall was a
Can you spell that?
Mackandal.
One word.
Mackendall. It's the name of a person, and it's also the name of a product, an object. Mackendall was the initiator of the Haitian Revolution, but it didn't actually take place until 20 or 30 years after his passing.
Oh.
He was 30 years old when he started his work. He put together, along with his crew, he gathered a whole crew together, and he put together Mackendalls. That's what they call them now, but we would call them mojo hands, or whatever. I don't know what it is in all the other traditions, but they were packets with poisonous herbs in them.
Oh.
Okay?